Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a genuinely fascinating framework, a comprehensive look at Module 2, Strategic and Technology-Driven Human Resource Management, designed by Professor D. Lyle C. Buhian. This material completely challenges that old, outdated idea of HR. You know, this stereotype of it being just a paper-pushing administrative office that only cares about attendance and payroll. Instead, we're going to explore exactly how to transform HR into a strategic, data-informed, and technologically empowered powerhouse for an organization.
Now, there is a quote in this material that honestly hits the nail right on the head. Technology can make HR faster. Strategy determines whether HR is moving in the right direction. Human judgment determines whether it is doing so responsibly. It's not just a catchy phrase, it's literally the entire blueprint we're about to unpack. Speed, direction, and responsibility. If you take nothing else away from our time today, remember that balance.
Okay, let's look at our agenda. 1. The shift to strategic HR. 2. Strategic workforce planning. 3. Digital HR and AI. 4. The power of people analytics. And 5. Ethics and human accountability. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the shift to strategic HR.
Think about your own workplace for a second. The crucial point here is a massive shift in the kind of questions being asked. Old school administrative HR just looks at the present and asks, are HR processes being performed correctly? It's all about checking boxes and efficiency. But strategic HR, it totally flips the script. It looks at the horizon and asks, do we actually have the people, the culture, and the systems in place to achieve our future goals? It's the difference between merely running a mandatory computer training session and actually building a strategy that anticipates exactly what jobs are going to change, disappear, or emerge as the organization grows.
Let's make this concrete with a real-world example. Imagine a university decides its ultimate goal is to become a top-tier research institution. Well, the HR strategy has to flow directly from that vision. HR can't just put out generic hiring ads anymore. They have to hunt for highly specific competencies. They're going to need faculty with advanced academic qualifications, strong research competencies, serious publication experience, grant-writing abilities, and solid international networks. The whole shebang, recruitment, performance rewards, succession planning, has to be entirely aligned to attract and foster those specific traits.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, Strategic Workforce Planning.
This is where HR professionals gain the foresight to actually anticipate what the workforce will need, rather than just panicking every time a vacancy pops up. It happens in 4 critical phases. First, you analyze the current workforce. Where are we right now? Second, you forecast future workforce needs based on the company's goals. Where do we need to be? Third is the workforce gap analysis, where you compare today with tomorrow. And that gap might be quantitative, like we literally just don't have enough people, or it could be qualitative, meaning we have the people, but they just don't have the new skills we need. Finally, step 4, you develop strategies to actually close that gap.
So how do you close it? Well, HR has an entire toolkit for this. If you just need fresh perspectives and new skills, you recruit external talent. But what if new technology completely changes the game? That's when you upskill your current team to boost their existing skills or reskill them entirely for completely different roles. If a role simply becomes obsolete, you redeploy that talent somewhere more useful. You mix in automating the routine stuff, retaining your critical players, and succession planning for future leaders, and you quickly realize that the best strategy is almost always a custom mix of all these different approaches.
Moving right along to Section 3, Digital HR and AI.
We have got to make a very clear distinction here. If you just scan a paper file and save it as a PDF, that is merely digitization. You're just putting a clunky old process into a computer. True digital transformation is totally redesigning the process from the ground up. It means building an integrated system where recruitment, onboarding, performance, and payroll all talk to each other seamlessly. The goal is to create so much efficiency and transparency that HR can finally stop drowning in paperwork and actually focus on high-level strategy.
And obviously, the biggest technological leap happening right now is artificial intelligence. AI can screen thousands of resumes in minutes. But this brings us to a massive, high-stakes dilemma. I want you to really think about this. Should an algorithm decide who deserves employment?
These new tech superpowers come with some serious hidden traps. Think about it. Algorithms learn from historical data. So, if past human hiring decisions were biased, the AI is just going to reproduce and scale those exact same prejudices. And it's terrifying because it looks perfectly objective, since it's just math, but it's built on a biased foundation. On top of that, if you use digital tools to constantly monitor employee productivity, you can completely destroy trust, creating a toxic culture that cares more about surveillance than actual performance.
All right, Section 4, the power of people analytics. This is where HR finally ditches the gut feelings and moves to hard, evidence-based decisions. Analytics matures in stages, kind of like a detective solving a case. Level 1 is descriptive. What happened? Okay, turnover just spiked to 15%. Level 2 is diagnostic. Why did it happen? The data shows all the turnover is in one specific department. Level 3 gets predictive. What's likely to happen next? The data says employees with a long commute and high workload are highly likely to quit. And finally, the holy grail is level 4, prescriptive. What should we do? This is where the analytics actually recommend specific targeted interventions to fix the problem.
To do all this, HR relies on a dashboard of vital signs, things like turnover rate, time to hire, employee engagement. But here is the absolute golden rule. These numbers are totally useless on their own. Data only matters if HR actually looks at it, asks why these things are happening, and figures out what leadership should do about it. The data has to lead to insight, and that insight has to lead to action.
And that brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Ethics and Human Accountability.
Time for a major reality check. Yes, technology can predict and calculate things with mind-blowing speed. But the responsibility for making fair, lawful, and ethical decisions, that always stays with humans. If an applicant asks why they didn't get the job, and HR just shrugs and says, well, the AI decided, that is a massive failure. The system decided is literally never an acceptable excuse for an unfair decision.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, you can really see how it all connects. The organization's vision dictates the workforce planning, which shapes the HR strategy. Notice how technology, like digital HR and AI, lives inside this system, not the other way around. The tech itself isn't the strategy. It's just the engine that powers people analytics to help you make evidence-based decisions. When it all clicks, it leads to better employee capabilities and incredible organizational outcomes.
We're wrapping up with this incredibly powerful thought from the source material. Use AI to assist professional judgment, not to replace professional accountability. The future HR pro can't just be someone who processes forms. They have to be a strategic thinker, a data expert, and a fierce protector of ethical management. Tech is just there to clear away the busy work so HR can focus on the stuff AI can never replace: empathy, fairness, leadership, and complex human judgment. So I'll leave you with one final question to think about. If your organization's HR department vanished tomorrow, would the company just miss its payroll processing, or would it completely lose its strategic compass for the future? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.